this is one of the 8 laws of health. And who knows what are the 8 laws of health? Who can go for that? Okay.
Godly trust and open air, daily exercise, God's plan, plenty of rest.
S.
Oh, did I miss S?
Yeah.
Sunshine.
There you go.
Proper rest. Wait, God's plan, proper rest. L, lots of water, always temperate, and nutrition. And these are the laws of health.
That's right. These are the laws of health. All right, we're going to sing this song. There's a song for the 8 laws of health at the end of this service, so stay tuned because at the end we're going to sing that song. You're going to want to know it. All right, so we're going to go over the second law of health. This is open air. And let's learn more about why is open air so important? Why is it a law of health? Well, this over here is really interesting. Did you know that the causes of death and disability in the USA, like the leading causes is this. It says, modifiable behavioral risk factors are the leading causes of mortality in the United States. So this is something, it's modifiable. What does that mean? Does anybody know?
It can be changed.
It can be changed and avoided, yeah.
By modifying your behavior.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of modifiable things that we can change?
Exercise. Diet.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking more water.
Yeah.
Breathing deeper.
And the laws of health.
Yeah, those things that people are not doing, kind of like tobacco or, poor diet and physical inactivity, they are the leading causes of death, of mortality in the United States. Wow. Hey, but you know what? It's encouraging because at least we can change it, right?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I read somewhere that during the flood, that some of the people would have gotten on the ark, but they hung out with certain people that influenced them into a bad, to die in the way of death.
Oh, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very interesting that you say that because this next verse in Exodus 15:26 says, and said, and this is God, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. It's very interesting that when you look at the Egyptians, they suffered of the same diseases that we're suffering today, like diabetes, obesity, heart attacks, and just all these different diseases that today are so prominent. Like, I remember watching this documentary, and they were saying how this, governors, they were doing the autopsy. That's how you say it? Mm-hmm. They were looking, they're like, whoa, the most famous and grand Egyptian, it was a lady. It was she was kind of acting like a pharaoh. She died of obesity and fatty liver. They were like, whoa, and just different diseases like that they had in those times. But God says, if you keep all these statutes, if you give ear to my commandments, those diseases are not going to be upon you. So that's why God has given us the 8 laws of health, so that we don't have to go through those problems. Like, the leading causes of mortality in the United States is because of stuff like this, because we don't have enough air, water, godly trust, nutrition. So let's look more into the air. So air pollution. It causes 2 million premature deaths per year. And the total life expectancy is reduced by 7 to 8 months due to air pollution. So we see air pollution is a problem. Like, wherever we go, there's air pollution. And especially in cities, there's less trees. When you live in the country, you have a lot of oxygen because those trees, does anybody know what the trees do?
They
produce oxygen. Yeah, that's true.
They take poison and carbon dioxide and then turn it into oxygen.
Yeah. It's kind of like
Like a
reverse
filter.
of what we do.
Yeah.
Because we breathe the oxygen intake and put out the CO2. Yeah. But look at this. So we're talking about air pollution. Now what about this over here? Poor indoor air quality affects over half of Earth's population. The EPA estimates indoor air 5 times more polluted than outdoor air. An average American spends 90% of the time indoors.
And I recognize that first picture that you showed on the air quality and how it's real foggy and everything. Inside somebody's house, it's not like that, and you really can't see that pollution,
That's right.
and it makes it even more dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
What you don't see can be more dangerous than what you do see.
yeah, exactly. So let's, like, it's amazing. It's like, that's where we get the most pollution. It's 5 times higher than outdoor quality of the air inside. So let's allow our homes to breathe. Let's let that air come through our homes. I would recommend at night when you go to sleep, open the windows. Why? If you live in the city and if you're not in the country yet, because I would encourage that, open your windows either very early in the morning, or the best thing, just open them at night, because that's when the least pollution there is around. It's just because of the temperatures and the time, there's less pollution, so it's safer to open the windows at night. And by opening the windows at night, your house can be aired. You can sleep even better because you get more oxygen, and when we sleep, that's when our bodies regenerate. So in oxygen, we're going to learn how oxygen actually regenerates our cells, and that's very important. And also, if you don't want to wake up groggy in the morning, open your windows at night. You're going to wake up very refreshed.
Amen.
Yeah. So, what happens when we do not get enough oxygen? Well, let's look. What happens with cancer? What is the connection between oxygen and cancer? Did you know that, cancer cells are not like any other cells in the body? The way they metabolize and create energy for living and multiplication is unique and dangerous. Normal cells love cancer, but cancer cells do not.
Normal cells love oxygen.
Oh, did I say cancer?
Yeah.
Oh, woo! No. Normal cells love oxygen. Thank you. But cancer cells do not. They prefer glucose, that's sugar. Cancer cells, their form of energy is glucose. It's that sugar. So the more sugar we eat in a day, the more cancer cells are going to be able to develop.
Is that good sugar too, like honey or something?
It's, well, as long as you get it in moderation.
Moderation in the good sugars and none of the bad sugars.
Mm-hmm.
Glucose is not just sugar. It's anything that gets metabolized as glucose. So even white flour gets metabolized as glucose faster than regular sugar. Yeah. Carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
It's
So like potatoes and stuff?
that's starch. It gets metabolized into glucose.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get cancer from that.
But our body needs it.
Exactly.
Yes,
Your
our
brain works in glucose. It needs glucose to function.
It's just
So-
the overabundance.
Yeah, there's in that bad sugar, the white sugar and white flours, things that have been overly processed, that is going to, because they're more acid, they're going to promote the acidity in the body and promote growth of cancer cells. So oxygen provides far less fuel for cancer cells than glucose. So this is really interesting. So filling your body with more oxygen is a smart and safe method to fight cancer. And okay, now let's look at the heart. Heart disease. A recent study in Italy found that the incidence of blood clots was higher among people that were exposed to increased level of particulate matter. And that is equal to increased risk of death from pulmonary embolism, stroke, and even heart attack. Now, particulate matter, it is it's really, how can I say it, the pollution that is in the air, it's full of those particular matters, because there's different chemicals, there's different things like that. So the more we're exposed to those, the more increased risk of death from pulmonary embolism, stroke, and even heart attack. And one study found up to 30% increase of mortality among those with heart failure that live closest to areas of increased pollution, highways, bus routes. So it's important for us to make sure that, if we're living in the city, that we may consider, a home in the country, so that we can keep our bodies healthier, our children's bodies, and our heart. And it's so important to keep our heart healthy, because that's what's really pumping all the oxygen throughout the body, so that every organ can get it. Because when the heart is not working correctly, that's when other organs in your bodies are not going to get oxygen. Your cells run on oxygen. So if your heart is not doing well, your whole body is going to suffer. Now, diabetes. This is very interesting. There is kind of like a process going on in the body whenever. Or how can I say this? Okay, well, I guess I can just read it so that it can be easier to understand. So the ineffective respiratory pattern or heavy breathing in diabetes causes systemic hypocapnia, and that's a CO2 deficiency in the how do you say that word, alveoli, I think that's the name, arterial blood and other cells. So this systematic hypocapnia reduces body and cell oxygenation, and it decreases insulin production. So it can lead to chronic pancreatic inflammation. So when the pancreas doesn't get enough oxygen, that is when, because there's low oxygen in the pancreas, the cell would reduce the function of the pancreas to produce insulin. So that's another reason why diabetes happens, because there's not enough oxygen. The pancreas is not getting that good oxygen, so it cannot function properly. It doesn't release the insulin. That's very interesting, huh?
Yeah.
So that means there's higher blood sugar levels too. Mm-hmm. More stuff to feed cancer.
Yeah, more stuff to feed cancer. You see how things is kind of like a domino effect. It's just like
all interrelated.
Yeah, very related. Now let's look at this. This is really interesting. So how does it affect different systems in our bodies? So we have the nervous system. So with the nervous system, it's really interesting. Enough supply of oxygen in the brain means stable nervous system, so body could function optimally. Now the neurons need oxygen in order for them to function. So then if we're not getting enough oxygen, even our neurons and our brain do not work well. Our nervous system is starting to have problems. Our immune system, cells regeneration would not happen without oxygen. Making sure that all cells receive enough oxygen is essential for the immune system. So if we truly are breathing, we're making sure that we have the oxygen, we're making sure we're going into the country, we exercise, that's how your immune system can be boosted, because that's how your cells can regenerate. Without oxygen, they cannot really regenerate very well. The digestive system. The digestive system breaks down the food and uses muscular contraction to move food through the digestive tract. It needs oxygen to function properly. So again, our digestive system needs that oxygen to be able to have those muscular contraction. Now, detoxification. Oxygen will cleanse up the toxic substances and at the same time repair the damaged cells caused by dangerous substances by accelerating the cell's regeneration. So then we want again that oxygen to be able to regenerate those organs and accelerate that detoxification in our bodies. Very important. And back to the nervous system. The Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, motor neuron disease, Huntington disease, are really caused by death of different neurons in the brain. And neurons, it's found that they actually die when there's lack of oxygen. So even a simple method like that God has given us, the 8 laws of health, to follow, just to breathe, it's keeping us from all those diseases. Did you know that every 66 seconds somebody's diagnosed with Alzheimer's? That's intense. And that's in the United States. Now this is the blood and how it looks when there's lack of oxygen. The first one in the upper left, you see all these cells stuck up together, and that's called rouleau. And that's when the cells are not able to flow through your body very easily, and that creates high blood pressure, and your cells do not carry enough oxygen. Now, if you look in the bottom right corner, you're going to see these cells with spikes, and that means that their nucleus is dying because they cannot carry oxygen. That means that your red blood cells are dying. The same cells that are bringing nutrients to every part of your body, these are so essential. So these are just some conditions of what happens when the body doesn't have oxygen. Is hard, is even your blood is having problems. And here it reminded me, all this studying about breathing in open air, it really reminded me of a lot of different spiritual lessons. And it reminded me of how Daniel, in Daniel 6:10, it says that he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God. So just as we want to open the windows in our home, just as we want to breathe for life so that our bodies can function properly, we want to do the same thing as Daniel did and be able to pray and I remember finding this quote that it says, "Let every breath be a prayer." Let us be always in communion with God, because the more constant communion we are with God, the more our bodies can actually function properly, and the more we can enjoy of spiritual health and happiness, and the more our brains and our minds work too. So let's remember to open the windows of our home. Let's remember to go out and exercise. Let's remember to breathe deeply, to open the windows at night so that we can get oxygen, and just open the windows of our souls to God as well, and pray very often. Keep that communion with God very often.